out about now.
Hopefully, I'll in the next few months live in the way of kings. But I mean that realistically and historically. But what do you mean the way of kings?
The Way of Kings is not an anime. The Way of
I'm
Kings
disappointed, actually.
is a book by Brandon Sanderson. Good old Brando Sando. So this is actually one of his early books that for a long time he didn't publish. He had tried to get it. I don't know. Anyway, he returned back to it, and a lot of authors, they don't return back to they call them trunk books, because their writing style evolves and changes as they go along. And so books that don't get published, they leave them there and never talk about them again. They're discarded stepchildren. Well, he decided this one had potential, and he went back and completely reworked it.
All right.
and has posted it and published it. And I listened to the audio book over the past couple of weeks, and it was very good.
Cool.
But it is not for the faint of heart. It is a 45-hour audiobook.
Nice.
So yeah, no, it is a big one. It's a big boy. And it has a lot of world building, especially towards the beginning before it really gets into the meat of everything. And so it's a bit of a slower burn. But in my opinion, it's worth it. It centers around a character. I mean, it's got several different viewpoint characters, but the main character is a slave. He was made into a slave because he was labeled as a deserter from the army. And he gets bought by the army, and they make him into a bridge runner. And so what the bridge runners do is they carry these heavy bridges to these chasms where the army is going to be fighting, and they have to get their bridges in place so that the cavalry and all the other soldiers can go across and fight the other army. But what ends up happening is a lot of the bridge runners die because the enemy are shooting them, so they can't get their bridges set up.
Yeah, of course. Right.
And so there's a high turnover rate. There's
benefits aren't great either.
No, they're not. And so
although acupuncture is free.
Yeah. But it's this very interesting world. There is tidbits of magic and ancient lost arts for making magic gear, magic armor, and so one of the things that's common throughout is if you have some of this magic armor or magic weaponry, then you basically have your life made. But the only way to get that magic gear is to kill someone who has it and take it. So getting it in the first place is near impossible for a normal person. But yeah, so it focuses a lot on him, and there's a couple other side stories along the way. And the title, A Way of Kings, is actually a reference to a book in the universe that an ancient king had written on the different codes that a king should live up to, the way a king should live their life. So talking about like during wartime, you should always be ready in your armor. You shouldn't get drunk, and you should always be ready to fight, during wartime. And there's a lot of chivalrous armor or chivalry about your attitude that you should have, and making sure that you are an honorable person and things like that. And most of the people mock the codes. They don't live them, but there's a few characters who are coming back to the codes, and they're seen as very old-fashioned and things like that. And so you've got that going on with the Way of Kings. And yeah, no, it's very good. It's got some very interesting world building aspects. Like once women reach a certain age, they're not supposed to show their left hand. Like it's considered scandalous.
Okay.
So he just kind of threw that in there, but he works it into their society.
Hmm.
And so some women will cover their hand up with a glove, but there's those that look down on them for because you can still see the outline of their glove. So
It's like yoga
so
pants for your hand.
yeah, and so most women will actually have their sleeves sewn shut on their left hand because they're not supposed to show their left hand.
Sure.
And yeah, so it plays into it. It doesn't really give a reason why, but I mean, there's a lot of in our own society different traditions that don't necessarily make a lot of sense, but that's the way people have always done it, type of thing. And so it's got some interesting world building from that. And there's one point where the main character sees a woman with her hand exposed, and he turns away. He's like, how scandalous. and yeah, so it's a good read if you're willing to put in the time for it. I've listened to it on the Libby app. Love the Libby app, and I have put the next two books on hold. I'd have to look up. It's the overall series is called the Stormlight Archive. I want to say I think he's planning on 10 books total.
Okay.
And he's got 5 out so far. Now I could be wrong on the total, but I want to say what I heard was 10 total. And theoretically, these are all going to end up interconnecting with some of his other books because they are part of his overarching Cosmere. That's so he's got various worlds, different worlds that are technically in the same universe. And in some of the books, you have seen people travel between the worlds. There wasn't any of that in this first book here that I identified. But there were some people with some weird powers that maybe they were from another world, and I just haven't read the book that's on that world to identify those specific powers that are, those are from that world. Because that has happened. Like I was reading one of the Mistborn books, and they explicitly stated, okay, no, this group of people they're all from different worlds and things like that. And so, he develops some very unique magic systems, and this one does not disappoint with that either.
I don't know, Joe. I don't think you like it. You really aren't saying much about it. You're just kind of one or two wording it here or there. I mean, obviously, it's great. You are a Brando Sando fando.
Yes, I am.
And I just accidentally made that up. I have not been sitting on that for the last 10 minutes.
Oh,
but that sounds cool.
I need to get my wife into it. She's got.
Honestly, it sounds like he'd be a great anime.
So maybe, but the thing is with Brandon Sanderson, because he's super wealthy already, he is very picky about adaptations. He's had people buy the rights to the Mistborn, which is one of his early books, a couple of different times, and they've gotten as far as pre-production at least once. But in those contracts, he has a lot of say on how it's developed.
Good.
Because he is not, and I don't blame him. He's not willing to let them do an unfaithful adaptation. Like he has gone out and hired someone to do the screenwriting, and like, so he's got it all prepped and ready. But he wants pretty close to, I don't think full creative control, but pretty close to full creative control and final say.
Yeah. I
So
get that. Yeah, one of my favorite authors, Dean Koontz. I love his books, and he has a real heart to what he does, and a real human aspect to it. But all the movies, and there's been multiples made of his books. The people who licensed it didn't understand the purpose of the book, and even though on some of the sets he was a part of it and he was influencing it, as somebody who loves his books, watching those movies most of the time, like it just doesn't have the heart that the book has. Not that the book's better,
yeah.
it just lacks the heart. It's almost always superficial about, because all his books have some kind of version of a monster or some supernatural something going on, but that's never what the story really is about. It's more of a catalyst to what the story is about. But the movies are just monster movies for the most part.